Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I am Scott, and you are in the Prog Corner where today, boys and girls, it's going to be a good one. Today we're talking about supergroups. Is there anything more prog than putting together a group of people based solely on their musical abilities to do great music? Well, it's not the exclusive domain of prog rock bands, certainly not. When you look back, maybe the first supergroup of all time was the Four Seasons with Frankie Valli. And you had, the Brat Pack with Sammy Davis and Dean Martin and, Frank Sinatra. That was a supergroup, but we're looking at rock and roll and prog in particular. So we're not going to talk about Cream or Blind Faith or Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Humble Pie, Derek and the Dominoes. Hey, you could make a case that the Eagles were a supergroup or Journey was a supergroup. Bad Company was a supergroup. How about Lords of the New Church? Oh, I love those guys. This Mortal Coil, Alcatraz, The Firm, Power Station, The Highwaymen, Bad English, The Traveling Wilburys, Mr. Big, Damn Yankees, Temple of a Dog, Mad Season, Broken Social Scene, A Perfect Circle, The New Pornographers, Audio Slave, Postal Service, Zwan, Chicken Foot, Fun, Them Crooked Vultures, Atoms for Peace, Off, Hollywood Vampires, and Boy Genius. So just a whole bunch of supergroups out there. And today I'm not going to be talking about any of the affiliated supergroups. So we're not going to include Flash or Badger or Circa or Conspiracy or Arc of Life or White or XYZ. All of those were kind of supergroups anyway. And you had a couple of Canterbury supergroups, Shortwave, In Cahoots. There was a whole bunch of King Crimson type of supergroups, 21st Century Schizoid Band, and you had Bruford Levin, Upper Extremities. You even had the UK spin-off band, UKZ, which was a supergroup, the Mute Gods, Planet X, The Sea Within, Soft Heap, which had all the Soft Machine people in, and last but not least, Strontium 90, which had Mike Howlett from Gong, and all three members of the Police, so that was a weird supergroup. But today, we're talking about the 25 best prog rock supergroups of all time. And I'm starting at number 25 with the Aristocrats, formed in 2011. It's Marco Minimum, Guthrie Govan, and Brian Beller. Guthrie, of course, played in Asia. Marco had played with Steven Wilson, and Brian had played with, a couple guys named Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, so I guess they're pretty good. Debut came out in 2011. They got a brand new album that just dropped this year called Duck, their sixth album. Very cool band. I love them. At number 24, it's Jelly Jam. No, not Jelly Roll. We're not talking about tattooed country singers today. We're talking about Jelly Jam, formed in 2002 by John Mayung of Dream Theater, got together with Ty Tabor of King's X and Rob Morgenstein of Dixie Dregs, put out a debut in 2002. Jelly Jam 2 came out in 2004. I guess there's two more albums I have not heard, but those first two Jelly Jam albums are awesome, man. At number 23, they just announced a new album. Yeah, it's 6x6. Their debut album dropped in 2018, and this supergroup consists of Ian Crichton from Saga, Nigel Glockler from Saxon, and the great hard luck story that is Robert Barry from 3.1. Dude that was in The Power of Three when Greg Lake wasn't around. And yeah, he's just a hard luck guy, but 6x6, fantastic. Brand new one coming out this year. Check them out if you like more of the AOR side of prog. At number 22, formed in 1997, is the Explorers Club. Brothers Trent and Wayne Gardner from Magellan are joined by James Labrie, John Petrucci, and Derek Sherinian from Dream Theater, with a whole bunch of guests like Terry Bozzio, Billy Sheehan, Marty Friedman from Megadeth, Steve Howe. Their first album came out in 1998, The Age of Impact. That one was great. Second album wasn't quite as good, Raising the Mammoth in 2002, but that first Explorers Club album is great. At number 21, another band that's now defunct. It's the Sons of Apollo, Formed in 2017, they dropped their debut album, The Psychotic Symphony, and then 3 years later, they dropped 2020. In 2020, the band consists of course, Mike Portnoy. You'll be hearing his name a few times in this episode. Billy Sheehan, Derek Sherinian, Bumblefoot, and Jeff Scott Soto. You know who all those guys are. What an amazing band they were. If it was only for 2 albums, I'll take it. At number 20, I had a quick change up here. At the last minute, I remembered Sky. How could I forget about Sky? Led by the great classical guitarist John Williams, joined by Francis Monkman, Herbie Flowers, and a couple people named Kevin Peake and Tristan Fry. Their first album came out in 1979. Really cool, classical, inspired prog, I guess. The Sky 2 came out in 1980, Sky 3 in 1981. Sky 4 in 82, and then in 83, they did an album without Francis Monkman called Cadmium. I've never heard it. I do like those first 4 Sky albums a lot. They're really cool, a lot of fun. At number 19, it's a one-off band formed in 1974 called Armageddon. Yeah, this was a cool band led by Keith Reeve from the Yardbirds. We also have Bobby Caldwell from the Johnny Winters Band and Captain Beyond, Martin Pugh from Steamhammer, and Louis Sinemo from Coliseum and Renaissance. They put out their great debut album in 1975, and that was it. Nobody ever heard from them again, but man, that one Armageddon album is pretty special. At number 18, yeah, we're going to talk about Portnoy again, and OSI, formed in 2003. This is the Office of Strategic Influence, formed by Jim Matheos from Fate's Warning. The first 2 albums had Mike Portnoy. The second 2 albums had Gavin Harrison. Not a huge drop-off there, but you also have Kevin Moore, Sean Malone from Cynic, and then you get a bunch of guests on these records like Michael Ackerfeld, Steven Wilson. You know the drill. They got 4 albums out. Like I said, the first 2 have Portnoy. So those are the 2 I tend to gravitate towards. At number 17, let's talk about Gordian Knot, formed in 1998. Again, it's a Sean Malone joint from Cynic. Yeah, he left us in 2020, but this Gordian Knot record is just great. The debut came out in 1999, and then 4 years later, Emergent came out. Sean is joined by John Mayung and Trey Gunn. What a fantastic lineup there. Again, with lots of guests. Steve Howe, Steve Hackett, Bill Bruford all show up on here, as does Jim Matheos. So yeah, it's kind of like a OSI homecoming in a way, but real solid stuff. I like both those albums. At number 16. Hey, it's Portnoy again. This time Flying Colors makes the list. This was a band formed by the record label. They decided that they wanted to get Steve Morse and Neil Morris in the same band together. So in 2012, they got together with Steve Morse and Dave LaRue from Dixie Dregs, along with the great Casey McPherson, who was also in The Sea Within. Alpha Rev was his band. The debut came out in 2012. It was good. Second Nature 2 years later, even better. And then their third album, Third Degree, came out in 2019. Fantastic stuff. It's not, capital P prog, but there's plenty of prog goodness in all 3 of those Flying Colors records. At number 15, from 1974, another one-off, it's Refugee. Is this a supergroup? Well, it kind of is. You have 2 guys from The Nice, Patrick Moraz, who'd been in a band called Main Horse, and certainly later on would come, become more famous and a guy everyone knew after he joined Yes and later the Moody Blues. They put out that one fabulous record, and that was it, because Yes came a-calling, so Refugee was no more. At number 14, yeah, it's another one of these really strange combinations. How about Bozzio, Levin, and Stevens? Yeah, you're talking about Terry Bozzio from Zappa in UK, Tony Levin, who needs no introduction, and Steve Stevens from Billy Idol's band. Oh, so good. In 1997, they dropped their debut, Black Light Syndrome. Love it. In 2000, Dangerous Situations came out almost as good. I wish those guys would have done a couple more records together, because they're a lot of fun. At number 13, talked about them the other day. It's 801. What a great band this was. Kind of coming on the heels of Quiet Sun. And then the following year, after 801 Live came out, There was a Phil Manzanera solo album called Listen Now, which I guess was kind of an 801 album too. But for 801 Live from 1976, the lineup was Phil Manzanera and Brian Eno from Roxy Music, Bill McCormick from Quiet Sun and Matching Mole, Francis Monkman from Curved Air, and some drummer named Simon Phillips. I don't know if that guy can play or not, but yeah, he can play. He absolutely can. At number 12, here's one you guys might not know about. I'd heard about this. They never recorded anything, but with this lineup, they're going to make the list. They only did like 6 or 7 shows, all of them in Japan, and the band is called The Best. And check this lineup out. It was Keith Emerson, John Entwistle, Joe Walsh, Jeff Skunk Baxter, and Simon Phillips. And when Simon Phillips was busy and couldn't play, they had Zach Starkey, who is Ringo Starr's son, on drums. So what an amazing supergroup. Boy, oh boy, I wish they would have recorded something, because that lineup is second to none right there. That's why they called it The Best. At number 11, I mentioned him briefly when talking about Bobby Caldwell. It's Captain Beyond in 1971. You had 2 cats from Iron Butterfly joining up of Rod Evans from Deep Purple and Bobby Caldwell, who was with the Johnny Winters band, and they formed Captain Beyond. And what a cool band, man. I love their debut from 1972. Sufficiently Breathless from 1973. Those first two Captain Beyond albums are just awesome. I love them. Now we're into the top 10 supergroups of all time. At number 10, it's GTR. Yeah, this was the brainchild of Steve Howe and Steve Hackett. They decided neither one was in their band at that point in time. Steve Howe was no longer in Asia. Hackett was kind of in the wilderness of the 80s. So they put a record out, and it actually had a top 40 hit on it. They were joined by Jonathan Mover, Phil Spalding, and Max Bacon. Apparently there was a second album planned, but that never materialized. So it stands as that one and done type of relic. And it definitely sounds like it was dropped in 1986. Not a big fan. At number 9, we got to put a Canterbury supergroup in here, right? Well, we're going to have a few actually, because a lot of those Canterbury bands were like supergroups, because the members kind of floated in and out and back and forth, to and fro and everything. But if we're talking about pure supergroups, we got to talk about Matching Mole. They put out 2 albums in 1972. They were formed in 71, and then they kind of disappeared. But this lineup is insane. It's Robert Wyatt from Soft Machine, David Sinclair from Caravan, Phil Miller from the Hatfield in the North, and then our good buddy Bill McCormick again from Quiet Sun. Like I said, the debut album, 1972, amazing. Their second album, The Little Red Record, was good too. Matching Mole, awesome stuff at number 8. Another Canterbury band, yeah. The National Health definitely qualify as a supergroup when you got Dave Stewart from Egg, Phil Miller, who we just talked about from the Hatfields, Alan Goen from Gilgamesh, Mont Campbell and Neil Murray from Egg and Gilgamesh respectively. They put out 2 albums, both of them in 1978, and I love them both. The debut was the self-titled, and then Cues and Cures or whatever their second album was called. Just amazing. And at some point, to drive home the point that this was a supergroup, at some point Bill Bruford was a member of the band. So there you go. At number 7, how about Liquid Tension Experiment? Yeah, they're a supergroup. They were formed in 1998, dropped their second album in 1999, and then took a little bit of time off because Portnoy was kind of, in the weeds. He wasn't, talking to these guys that much. So when Liquid Tension Experiment 3 came out in 2021, we knew something was going on. But you know who's in this band. It's Mike Portnoy, it's Jordan Rudess, it's John Petrucci, and the amazing Chapman stick bass playing of Tony Levin. Yeah, he's been in a few of these supergroups, hasn't he? Yeah, Liquid Tension Experiment. Fantastic. At number 6, here's a band that started out as a supergroup, but kind of is their own thing now, and I'm talking about The Tangent. They were formed as a one-off, kind of a meeting between Parallel and 90 Degrees and the Flower Kings. So you had 3 members from Andy Tillison's band, Andy, Guy Manning, and Sam Bain. And then you had 3 members from the Flower Kings, Roy Nostal, Jonas Reingold, and Zoltan Source. And then you Throw in David Jackson from Vandergraaf Generator into the mix. That's a supergroup right there. Their debut album came out in 2003. They put out 12 albums with quite a few lineup changes along the way. But Andy Tillison is just my spirit animal. I love him. And yeah, the Tangent started as a supergroup, so I'm including them here. And now we're in the top 5. And I've got another Canterbury band. It's the Hatfields in the North. Why? Yeah, why not, man? Like I said, most of these Canterbury bands could be considered supergroups, but this one here absolutely has to be. Richard Sinclair from Caravan, Dave Stewart from Egg and from Con, Pip Pyle, of course, from Gong, and Phil Miller from Delivery and Shortwave and Matching Mole. All that stuff Phil Miller was doing. They put out 2 records, the debut in 1974, which is one of my favorite albums of all time. Followed it up in 1975 with a real sweet sophomore record, The Rotters Club. I love the Hatfields so much. Their debut is probably my favorite Canterbury album of all time. At number 4, yeah, we can't talk about supergroups and not include Asia. Absolutely, we got to include them. If we're talking about commercial success, they'd probably be number 1 or 2 on this list. But anyway, when you put John Wetton, Steve Howe, Jeff Downs, and Carl Palmer in the same band, fireworks are going to ensue, and they certainly did for at least 2 albums. The debut in 1982 and Alpha in 1983. And then for some reason, they fired Steve Howe, which was not a real smart thing to do. And then Wetton got all mixed up on alcohol, and the wheels really fell off. But those first 2 Asia albums, absolutely incredible. I love them. At number 3, it's the modern equivalent of the great supergroup. Yeah, man, it's Transatlantic at number 3, formed in 1999. Originally, Mike Portnoy wanted to do something with Neil Morris because he'd been listening to some Spock's Beard records and really liked them. Wanted to bring him on tour with Dream Theater, but he also wanted to do some work with him. Originally, they were thinking about Jim Mathias from Fate's Warning. Luckily, he was busy, so they got Roy Nastalt from the Flower Kings. And then you throw in Pete from, Marillion, and you've got the 4 pieces set. And yeah, 5 perfect albums. The debut in 2000, Bridge Across Forever in 01, The Whirlwind in 09, Kaleidoscope in 2014, and The Absolute Universe in 2021. All 5 are 10 out of 10 to these ears. Just love them. At number 2... oh, man, if you're just talking about ability and technical skill, this has to be number 1. It's UK, but I got him at number 2. Why do I have him at number 2? Who in the heck's at number 1? If, UK's at number 2, that don't make no sense. I think you know who's at number 1. John Wetton, Alan Holdsworth, Bill Bruford, Eddie Jobson put out that incredible debut in 1978. Holdsworth and Bruford go away because they wanted to keep doing more progressive things. And Eddie Jobson and John Wetton wanted to do something a little more commercial, so they dropped Danger Money with Terry Bozzio. Man, if that's commercial, man, that doesn't sound commercial to me. It just sounds awesome. I love UK. Man, oh man, I wish we would have gotten a couple more records out of those guys. Absolutely. Hey, where's my light, man? Stop this. I want my light. I want my light. Stay. There we go. I look much better with good lighting. At number 1, you know who it is. Formed in 1970 from the ashes of the Nice, King Crimson, and Atomic Rooster. It's Emerson, Lake and Palmer, the greatest of all supergroups of any genre. I don't care. You can have your Crosby, Stills, Nash and Youngs and your Blind Faiths and your Temple of the Dogs. I will take Emerson, Lake and Palmer all day, every day. You know what happened after they formed. Their second gig was in front of like 200,000 people, and they got signed before they'd even played a single show. You know the history. It's amazing. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, the number 1 prog rock supergroup of all time, and I guess it's probably not that big a surprise. Anyway, tomorrow on the show, I'm going to try to bust out an album review. Got the brand new Samurai of Prague, A Quiet Town, so good. Really can't wait to talk to you guys about it. But anyway, have a great day. Peace in the Middle East. Free Tibet and God save King Chucky. Save King Charles. That boy needs your saving. I said he needs saving because he's got some cancer, and thoughts and prayers for the king. Yes, indeed. I'll see you puppies tomorrow.